Metropolis Street Racer is a video game that was released in November of 2000 for the Sega Dreamcast. I'll henceforth abbreviate Metropolis Street Racer to MSR. MSR was developed by Bizarre Creations and published by Sega, exclusively for the Dreamcast. It was the closest thing the console had to a Gran Turismo-style title, bar Sega GT. While other racing games on the Dreamcast focused on delivering arcade experiences, like in Sega Rally or Daytona, MSR was built with a focus on simulation and realism, with gameplay mechanics that encouraged focused and precise driving, as well as enough depth in the vehicles to allow for expressive driving. You can drive with or without anti-lock braking, and all vehicles can be driven with automatic or manual transmission. Not only did Bizarre Creations set out to deliver an immersive simulation of driving, but they went above and beyond in their execution. Whether played on original hardware or emulated, MSR feels brilliant to play. The cars are simulated beautifully. If you have a favourite car from Gran Turismo and enjoy how it drives there, you'll be very comfortable getting behind the wheel in the same make and model in MSR. While Bizarre put a great amount of detail into the simulated vehicles, they also created 9 maps spanning 3 cities: London, Tokyo, and San Francisco. The portions of each city they chose to build their world in are painstakingly crafted, with an attention to detail that puts even later Gran Turismo titles to shame. From the Houses of Parliament to Shibuya Station, MSR's maps serve as a captivating snapshot of the locations they depict at the time of the game's release. All this being said, I still neglect to mention the incredible soundtrack and in-game radio stations, all lovingly produced by Sonic R and Jet Set Radio composer Richard Jacques. It was the soundtrack for me that solidified this game as a favourite as soon as I started playing it. Hearing the voice of Sonic R vocalist TJ Davis on music I'd never heard from her, with less Sonic R cheese and more Jet Set Radio style, was an introduction to the game that I will never forget. That's enough selling MSR though. This isn't a review video. This is me shamelessly hopping onto a popular trend, but with at least enough originality to be doing so for a game that seems to be very scarcely explored. While on GameFAQs, individuals like Wolf Feather, Shotgun Nova, and Funky QB have dutifully documented a wealth of information, it seems their library of facts, cheats, exploits, and lovingly crafted guides have fallen into the cracks of the web. Nonetheless, along with my own research and hours of playtime, I've managed to forge a good amount of information for those of you who, like me, care to hear it. Without further ado, I present, as a belated celebration of 300 subscribers to this red-headed bastard of a YouTube channel, the Metropolis Street Racer Iceberg. A deep dive into this positively magical game, scraping out the bottom of the barrel even the most shameless of creators will not touch. Before I continue, I just want to thank every single person who's helped me to this milestone. Every person who is watching this, every single person who has liked or disliked one of my videos, everyone who's commented, and every single one of you who have pressed that coveted subscribe button. I really hope you enjoy this video, and that it is just as weird and wonderful as all the other uploads that might have drew you here. Cheers! And furthermore, I just want to thank as well Cheeky Chunk and Iggy, speedrunners of this game who have worked extremely hard to get a good understanding of the systems at play in this game. It's a lot more depth below that surface than you would expect just playing it casually. And it was really thanks to them that I've been able to properly and carefully document all of this stuff, and the fact that they themselves have documented it too. I'd also like to take a moment here to draw your attention to Iggy's website, www.iggyland.org. Iggy is currently on a search for a living kidney donor, as he is living with a disease called ADPKD, or autosomal dominant polycystic kidney disease. If he doesn't find a living donor in time, Iggy might succumb to the condition before a donor is available. But you can help. All you need to do, if you can, is share the website around so more folks can be aware of Iggy's situation and if you're comfortable and able to do so, Iggy has shared information on how to apply for a test to see if you are a compatible donor. This test is anonymous, ran by the University of Michigan Medical Center, and there's no pressure. If you change your mind, you can back out. But you may well be able to save Iggy's life, even if all you do is share his website. Please consider sharing or applying for a test. I've put a link on screen, and there is also a link in the video description. Thank you for your patience. I'll now continue to the video. So starting out at the first level, we've got Kudos. MSR does not rate you based on your overall lap time or the position in which you finish a race. While certain challenges do rely on you beating time restrictions or finishing in a certain place, the main way in which you will progress is by earning Kudos. Kudos points are awarded and deducted based on the style in which you drive. Simply finishing fast enough or dominating a race will not gain you these points. Instead, Kudos is earned by, well, driving skillfully, which we'll get to, and drifting. That is, drifting at speed, taking a corner hard and fast, using the handbrake to drift around it while maintaining a racing speed. The game presents Kudos front and centre before you even see the title credits. As in a good story, the key theme is introduced right at the very start, before the audience could possibly perceive its crucial importance. MSR begins with a definition of the word. Respect given to an individual, praise conferred for status achieved, honour awarded to the ultimate winner. The choice of this word is deliberate. It originates from Greek and was initially used around the 19th century to describe academic achievement. It's since evolved into colloquial use and become a more common way to say, well done. Kudos to you. Much like honour or respect, it can be earned as well as lost. Driving into walls, knocking your opponents, or even just scraping the corners as you pass will lose you Kudos. Furthermore, failing a race will automatically result in a loss of 25 Kudos points. Giving up on a race will lose you 50. A statement that to fail is one thing, but to rage quit is to bring even worse shame upon yourself. MSR once had an online component, which we'll get to, when the Dreamcast was still online, and Kudos scores could be compared globally, akin to a modern-day gamer score. CPF. So, CPF, or Car Performance Factor, is the ranking system by which MSR rates the vehicles you use in the game. It scales from 1 to 5, and allows for decimal rankings, so a lower ranking car may be 1.2, while a higher ranking car may be 3.0. While it is a useful way of gauging how fast a car can be, the manual does qualify. A car with a higher CPF will generally be more powerful, this generally doing some serious heavy lifting. The truth of CPF is that while it acts as a guide, it is not the determinative factor while racing. However, what it does affect is the amount of Kudos that you earn while drifting, and also the amount of skill that you will get for winning a race. I'd like to thank Cheeky Chunk again for pointing this out to me. So if you drift in a higher CPF rated car, you will earn more Kudos points for the drift. And if you complete a race in a lower CPF rated car than perhaps the one that you would be expected to win that race in, or race, event, what have you, you will get a higher skill bonus. There is a trade-off, obviously. If you go into quite a high-level event with a really low-level car, completing it may earn you a lot of skill points, but if you were to be drifting, which, to be fair, in a higher-level event you might choose not to because you don't want to lose any time doing so, but you simply won't gain the points that you would if you were doing it in a higher-level car. Cars can be automatic or manual. They can have anti-lock brakes or not have them. They may have a higher or lower brake horsepower. They may be heavier or lighter. and these particular factors will probably have a much greater bearing on your enjoyment of driving them and your ability to defeat events in them than the car's CPF rating. For instance, while the Ford Mustang is a very powerful car at 4.0 CPF, it is a rear-wheel driving vehicle, and as such, those who favour the stronger grip of four-wheel drive or more instinctual handling of front-drive cars may favour a car with a lower CPF like the Mitsubishi FTO, which has a 3.6 rating that I personally find much more drivable when I'm playing this game. Ultimately, CPF is a guide. Yes, it affects your kudos earned, whether for skill, if it's a lower skilled car than you'd expect to win the event with, or for style, if it's a higher performing car, you will earn more points for those drifts. While this is a factor, ultimately you're going to need to think about whether or not you want a front four-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive car, and look at things like the brake horsepower or the weight, and ultimately just play around with different vehicles and see which ones you like.
Hey baby, I want to show you something.
So, the CD player. Metropolis Street Racer does take boy racer simulation so seriously that you even get a snazzy in-car stereo system, complete with Y2K LCD Edge. While driving your car, under the options menu there is an option for ICE or in-car entertainment. The CD player is a magazine system, supporting up to 9 discs being playable without having to manually insert or remove them, including your own custom CD, presumably forged with Windows Media Player if that was even an option back then. As well as the CDs available to you, in each city there are free radio stations that can be tuned to, complete with unique hosts all sporting their own appropriate personalities. We'll cover them in more detail later, but for instance, the London jazz station has a soothing aged man playing you his favourite new records, while the San Francisco country station has a half-cut redneck making jazz in a thick southern accent, jockeying euphemistic narrative songs and live renditions of his favourites. Let's talk about the custom messages now. When you earn or lose kudos, messages are displayed on the screen. By default, earning kudos will splash "Way hey," and losing it will display "Watch out." I'm not sure how well known this is, but you can actually go into the settings and change these messages to whatever you want, as long as it's no more than 16 characters, including spaces. There's no filtered words either, you can literally put whatever you want, which led to me changing them to wildly inappropriate things when I started out playing this game. You can even alter the message that displays when going the wrong way, for instance, to insult you for doing so. Okay, so I suck at this game. Yeah, this isn't a serious entry, but then this isn't a serious video. I just want to preempt the comments I'll receive from people who weren't a literal baby when this game came out, like I was. I know for a fact that I'm terrible at this game. Honestly, I'm terrible at most games, but this one is particularly punishing. In fact, Wolf Feather's GameFAQ guide literally starts by saying, "First, Metropolis Street Racer is definitely not for the casual racing gamer. Those who view racing as continually standing on the accelerator until the race ends will definitely fail miserably in this game. So yeah, I suck. Sorry." Camera settings. Again, this is perhaps more housekeeping, but you can actually change the default camera in the main menu. I often found myself going into every race and then pushing the camera back as far as possible, just because that's how I like to play. But once I discovered this option, my left thumb was cut some much needed slack. As much as can be cut while playing this game anyway. Now, free roam maps. The game doesn't make it obvious when you begin, but if you go into the time trials menu, you'll see the maps you've unlocked through racing, as well as those you haven't. Well, in each area at the very end of the long maps is a free roam mode. The best part is, this free roam mode isn't actually that hard to unlock. All you need to do is gain enough kudos to have unlocked all the levels, all 25 of them, and then the 25th level consists of 9 one-on-one races. They could be hard, but you could also be a bitch like me and give yourself a 60-second head start in every single one of them, and gain yourself the unprecedented rule of the road that these beautiful recreations of real-life cities naturally instill a desire for. If I'm being honest, free roam mode is an amazing reward, but once you have it, it's a little underwhelming. When you're racing through these areas on restricted courses focused on beating a goal, they look and feel a lot more expansive than they really are. This is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, I think it's a strong testament to the brilliant design of the in-game world that the idea of free roam is so enticing. But on the other, it's kind of an immersion breaker to realise that these places are literally just very big circuits with some cut-throughs and side roads. Don't get me wrong, I love it. I wouldn't be making this video if I didn't, but I won't pretend the free roam mode is some magical, coveted reward that changes the game. As they say, it's not about the destination, it's the journey. Swatch timing. So, swatch timing is something that comes up at the start of each race and throughout. It's difficult to tell if this is just an advert or if the game actually features some kind of precision clock other than the Dreamcast's internal one. Swatch is a Swiss watch company, best known for their unique and stylised watches. Around the time this game came out, the late 90s and early 2000s, Swatch watches were a trendy item. If I'm honest though, I don't think the game uses anything other than the internal clock to keep time, purely because when I ran the game on Redream for the purposes of recording, the game's clock ran slow, which I don't know if that's an emulation error or if that's something to do with Redream itself, whereas I ran it on Flycast, another emulator, and the in-game clock worked perfectly fine. So I think this might just be a product placement. Now let's talk about gambling.
Aw, dang it!
Metropolis Street Racer actually has a gambling element to its gameplay. There are 3 ways in which this can be found: through jokers, replaying events, and even in the way you earn cars. For every 1,000 kudos points you earn, you're given a joker. This is a card that you can play on any event to double the kudos you score. The gambling element here is that if you lose this event, the 25-point penalty will also be doubled, as will the 50-point penalty for abandoning the event. Furthermore, it's important to note that even if you win the event, if you take more penalties than you earn points, the amount of points you get from penalties will be doubled too. On top of that, each event you win can be replayed, with the caveat that you sacrifice your previous kudos score for the event. This means if you try an event again, if you perform worse than you did before, you lose points overall. So maybe you're thinking, I could do better, I could definitely do better, and then you go in and, you're just not having a great day today. You have lost progress. Finally, the way you earn cars requires you to stake your kudos too. At first, you have empty slots to use for no penalty, but each car you use takes one of these. You start with only 3 slots, eventually gaining 6 later on in the game, but once you run out of space, and inevitably you will need to discard a car. And depending on how much you've used this car or how much this car has helped you, it will charge you a certain amount of kudos points. So you discard your car, and then to earn the car that you want instead, you have to take part in a time trial where you must pass a certain time. If you can't beat this challenge, you've lost your old car, you've lost some kudos, and you have nothing to show for it. Yeah, it's not quite the aggressive gambling elements in modern games, some of which require you to stake real money, but it still gives me a good dopamine hit when I beat the house. Now, license plates. Firstly, when you get a car, you can input your own license plate. which is up to 8 characters, including spaces. You put pretty much whatever you want, just like the messages screen. But it's also interesting to note that the computer-controlled cars have their own plates too. I don't know if I've managed to get an exhaustive list, in fact I'm certain I didn't, but from dumping some textures and being observant and asking other people which licenses they've seen, I've managed to find the following. So we've got C3PO, Philip, Keith, Craig, Create, spelt C-R-3-A-T-3, Apple Pie, Wolves, Daglish, Rico, Ford, Ringo, Owen, and Boo! Oh, and Cats. There are definitely more in the game. Let me know in the comments if you can think of any that you've seen, and definitely keep an eye out in the videos. I'm sure some of my footage will have a few I've missed. Now, the online challenge. MSR was one of the Dreamcast's many ill-fated online games, which now remain disconnected for all eternity. I mean, there are things out there like the Dream Pie and the incredible Dreamcast Live community, which allow for online play in current year, although quite honestly I haven't bothered to get into this scene as I imagine it is slightly dead. No offence. That being said, one of the physical copy's inlays is an advert for an online competition where you could, from what I gather, actually win a Vauxhall VX220 or Opel Speedster, the Speedster being the global name of this car. I'll allow the inlay to speak for itself. Win your dream car on Dream Arena. Want to know the word on the street? The brand new Vauxhall VX220 is as hot as they come. This thrilling new sports car will give you the drive of your life. That's just an advert. Bit that's relevant, as it says, Metropolis Street Racer gives you the simulated driving experience. Now, Dream Arena is giving you the opportunity to find out what it's really like to get behind the wheel. One lucky dreamer will be amongst the first in Europe to drive it out of the showroom. And there's a bit about how to enter. We'll be running a competition on Dream Arena, so insert your Dream Key disc into the console and come online now for your chance to put yourself in the driving seat. At time of printing, the dates of the competition were unconfirmed. Please visit Dream Arena for regular updates. To enter the competition, gamers must go online for Dream Arena register. Promotion is only open to residents of the UK, Air France, Germany, Spain, employees of Sega Europe and its affiliated companies, Dream Arena Ltd, General Motors, Opel and Vauxhall. Their families and persons connected with the promotion and execution of the prize draw may not enter. This promotion is governed by UK law. The competition ends on 2nd of January 2001. Ugh. Oh, sorry guys. It's over. In the PAL version, this competition was open to the entire region, with the inlay having English, French, German and Spanish translations. Sorry Switzerland, but thanks for the watches. The other side of the inlay advertises 4 unique challenges: the London Challenge, the San Francisco Challenge, the Tokyo Challenge and the Free City Challenge. I assume the latter involved all 3 former cities. So yeah, don't think you can get that Vauxhall now, but hey, a little bit of information there for you. Now let's talk about the demos. MSR actually features 10 in-engine demo movies, viewable from the options menu at any time in-game. These are showing during the title of the game when there's no input for after about 30 seconds. You've probably seen them before if you play Metropolis Street Racer. These demos all actually have their own titles. There's The Battle of Trafalgar, the Shibuya Skyline, London Audi Battle, Tokyo Kurama Kyoso, Embarkador Encounter, The Cenotaph Flypast, Spiders on the Thames, On Her Majesty's Service, Alcatraz Bay and Parliamentary Duel. So, when you see the demos on the screen after leaving the game idle for a bit, know now that you are not just seeing a demo, but a demo that has a name. Now, Bizarre Creations. Yeah, so the studio that developed Metropolis Street Racer, Bizarre Creations, has their own story. The studio actually developed mainly for the PlayStation and PC before turning their hand to the Dreamcast. Firstly, with a title called Fur Fighters, which we'll talk a little bit about later on. After Metropolis Street Racer, they went on to develop the series onto Xbox and PC platforms, titled there as Project Gotham Racing, which inherited the style and mechanics of Metropolis Street Racer and took them onto Microsoft hardware. Now, in 2007, Bizarre Creations were acquired by Activision, and in a decision that would later become a lot more common, Activision shut them down in 2011. Truth is that Metropolis Street Racer was a very unsuccessful game, and Bizarre's later titles sadly followed this trend. That being said, it's obvious playing MSR that so much love and personality was injected into their work, and the personality of the staff is unmissable when you spend a while enjoying this title. Now let's talk about speedrunning. Like any game worth its salt, MSR has a collection of speedrunners working hard to beat the game as quickly as possible. MSR currently has 2 runs registered on speedrun.com. Any percent, where the player must get to the end credits as quickly as possible, and all missions, where the player must complete all 250 missions as quickly as possible. The key difference between the two is that any percent simply requires you to get at least 55,000 total kudos points to trigger the game to show the end credits after any event in Chapter 24 is completed. Now that asterisk is there because in the current world record speedrun, which is held by Cheeky Chunk, the actual requirement is 55,050, because the way that he triggers the credits to play is to go into an event and immediately abandon it, which loses you 50 kudos points. So you actually need, in that technique anyway, 55,050 points. On the other hand, all missions requires completion of every single mission in the game, which, assuming every mission takes around 2 minutes to complete, and many missions take much longer than this at minimum, will necessarily take hours to complete, with zero opportunity for any breaks. This is a speedrun, remember? To illustrate this point, let's compare the any percent and all missions world records. Current world record for any percent is Cheeky Chunk's time of 1 hour, 47 minutes and 49 seconds. The world record for all missions, which is effectively 100% completion, or hundo, as this kind of run is referred to by speedrunners, is held by Nexels at 22 hours, 24 minutes and 1 second. I've been lucky enough to actually speak to Cheeky Chunk, the world record holder, and his friend Iggy, who currently holds the 3rd place position on speedrun.com, about the history of MSR speedrunning, and ask them some questions for this video. Cheeky Chunk and Iggy have both made invaluable contributions to other sections here as well, but this particular section would not be anywhere near as in-depth without their help. So in particular, I want to thank Cheeky Chunk so much for this next segment, because he allowed me to interview him over Discord and record his answers to my questions. So yes, firstly I'll start with, why did you decide to start speedrunning Metropolis Street Racer?
For me, I speedrun stuff from my childhood, and my favorite console from childhood was my dad's Dreamcast. We still have it, but the disk drive is broken, but we still had all the discs. So now as a big strong adult, I went through and I checked. Okay, what games did we have on the Dreamcast? Oh yeah, Metropolis Street Racer. Yeah, I've always wanted to speedrun all the games on the Dreamcast because it was only like 15 games. It wasn't that many. With Metropolis Street Racer specifically, it actually took a while to want to speedrun this one because originally there was one run on the leaderboard and it was like 27 hours long. And basically, bro had just like done a full like 100% speedrun of the entire game. So later on, one of my like friends I've made for speedrunning, a guy called Viper UK, he was like, oh yeah, like I think you could like definitely do this a lot faster. Eventually I was like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna try and get into this game. But what happened was eventually this French guy called Nexels showed up, also posted a full bloody like 100% run, except instead of 27 hours it was now 22. But he had like started to like do some of the sort of techniques that we'd use later in order to like get through the game a lot faster.
You already covered this a little in the last question, but what, if anything, do you have to say about the Hundo run?
So I have mod now, and I'm pretty sure it used to be called like Street Racing Any Percent, and I was like, no, like this is so bad because the whole thing with speedrunning is like you should want other people to do it or to give it a try, and if you like set up the leaderboard in such a way that it's like, oh yeah, boom, if you want to speedrun this game, you have to commit to like a full day's worth of running it. So it wasn't very accessible before. What was tricky was the original guy that ran it, this guy called Kane. He skipped hitting credits because you hit credits when you have enough to unlock final chapter, and then you do at least one event in chapter 24. He bugged it out because rather than doing an event, he like went to go unlock like a new car, and then because he did that, when he went back to like the street racing, the final chapter was unlocked and was ready to play, but like he'd skipped like hitting the credits cutscene. So I think him doing it that way, there was no like, oh boom, this is when he hit credits, okay, this should be the any percent category, it's just hitting these credits. So he bugged it out, and it's only because this like other guy Nexels showed up and did a run, and it was like, oh yeah, like bro hits credits like 2 hours 15. Okay, nice, that seems like a way more like accessible like speedrun rather than like a full day's worth.
Okay, you've already given us some insights there, but could you just talk me through the history of the any percent route and how it got to where it is today?
Well, I don't know, so you've looked at like speedrun.com. On the leaderboard there's like the guide section. Yeah, so the top, so if we do the bottom dock first, that's maybe a bit easier to explain. The bottom one, which is a Word doc, this is literally just me like going into like different stages and just like setting a bunch of different target times and trying it in a bunch of different cars and seeing like what's viable. And like basically we found that like of the sort of like 10 different mission types, the most like point heavy ones are like hot lap. And there's two kinds of hot lap. It's like either you need like an average speed throughout all like the laps, or you just need to hit like one very fast lap. The way it works, it's like you have your skill, which is like, yeah, like I'm gonna set this target time, I'm gonna go as fast to like hit the target time, bosh, and you'll get like a bunch of skill kudos. But like the real like moneymaker is style kudos, and you just get style from like drifting. You drift and then the K appears and it fills up. So initially I was just going through the game and I was like, okay, like which ones give like that sort of nice baseline skill kudos, and then once we have like the nice like strong skill kudos, then we're thinking about, okay, like how much like extra style of drifting can I like throw on top. So I was just going through and I was like putting them like, yeah, this is a really good like one. Sort of like I'm thinking about this next idea, which is like the kudos per second. It's like, yeah, like how do I know like this mission is really good bang for its buck? Well, I'll like see how long it takes to do, then I'll see how many kudos it gives us, and then I'll calculate like, oh yeah, how many kudos per second do we get? So that's that Word doc is like me like testing a whole bunch of stuff. if you flip to the Excel or the spreadsheet one, then you've got 3 different sheets. The second sheet is probably like the first one to go through, and this is just like we looked at Nexel's like full run, and we looked at what he did from the start up to hitting the credits. So we have stuff like, how long the level was. We have like stuff like his like sort of real time it took him, and then the in-game time, how many kudos he get, and then we got stuff like the kudos per second. And then I even went a step further and I was like, okay, let's try and get like a weighted kudos per second, which is basically like, okay, fair enough that it's like if you do a race and it gives you like 1,000 kudos, but it takes like 200 seconds, that's great. And that'll give you what, like a kudos of 5 per second. But basically, the whole point of weighted is that it's like if you have an equal rate, which is like you get 5 kudos per second, there is a slight like preference to do the longer event than the shorter event, because they will both take like a similar amount of menuing. Okay? So the whole point of weighted is it's like, it's not just how long it takes to do the event, it's how long it takes to do the event plus how much like expected menuing you should have to do. So there is like a much preferred bias, whatever the term is, for like doing like longer events when possible. Obviously, no matter what, you want a high kudos per second. But if you have 2 events and it's like, which one do we pick? Which one's going to be better for the route? We're going to try and pick the longer one than the shorter one if they both give the same. So we looked at his route, and the problem with his routing was that he would do hot lap, so he'd set a really fast time, and he would spend like 8 whole minutes going like up and down a straight line, drifting over and over and over. And we were just watching it. So by we, it's me and this other guy called Iggy. Me and Iggy were like, we were talking about it. Basically, there's a guy who was like, I'm going to beat every Dreamcast game. And he did Metropolis Street Racer. And then that meant that like this Iggy guy was interested in the speedrun. And I started talking to him. But me and Iggy were like interested in watching Nexel's run, and we saw that he was doing this very like inefficient or like even like ugly looking like just drifting over and over and over. So if you look at 1-1 in the sheet, like he spends 10 minutes on it. And it's like 3 laps that should take like 20 seconds each. So like max you should be like in this stage for like a minute to a minute 20, and he's spending 10 minutes on it. We went through his entire run and we looked at like, how he was doing. And then I started doing that big old Google Doc where I was testing all the stages. Whereas Iggy was much more of the school of thought of just like, well, I'm just going to start doing runs. I'm just going to start doing runs and I'm just going to try stuff. And if you look at his sheet, but he was just like, I'm trying different cars, different race types, trying some target times, and then again trying to figure out like that kudos per second. At least I have a gut feeling that like we were trying to route this back in like October, like maybe like 2024, and then I just got busy with other stuff, and then only in April this year I was like, right, I have time to do it. So Nexels has his, Iggy gave it a go, but like in my opinion, it wasn't very like thorough. Even now, he has like a 2-hour 37. So I think he was doing runs and he was just getting demotivated because he couldn't like seem to get anywhere close to the record, even though we knew the record was very like inefficient. And then the first sheet is my route. What I will say is that like thanks to Iggy, we figured out more. Basically, as I've already said before, the skill kudos, just hitting your target time or whatever, that's fine. But making the most kudos is doing the drifting. And we found that like every car has like a CPF or a car performance factor. And the higher the CPF is, then the more like drifting kudos you're gonna get out of it. So you really do not want to spend a lot of time on the earlier cars, because the earlier cars have a low CPF, and that means that you'll get like dog shit like drifting kudos compared to like if you just try and get through them as fast as possible. So one of the big things for us is that we really like the OPC car, because you get it like early, and even though like it's so like fat and stiff and not very good at drifting, it has like such a good like high like CPF for like the early game. Yeah, we were with the OPC for a while, and then we later on like I started switching to the TTR, which is like literally like this, or TT Roadster. Even though it's the same CPF, it like it's a lot easier to drift in because it's not so like chonky compared to the OPC. Whereas with Iggy, he was like hard believer of the 306 like Cabriolet, but then that has a CPF of like 2.4. So you actually get worse like drifting using that guy than the OPC. But like Iggy just, you know, people have their preferences, right? And then like the whole goal is like, yeah, get the Celica. But it's kind of a shame because by the time you get the Celica, like kind of like late game.
Does a Metropolis Street Racer speedrunning community exist? And if so, is there anything to say about it?
Sadly, like, not really. It's like basically there was like the old community where it was Kane and another guy called Ductanian, and they were like interested in running the game back sort of like 2020-ish into like 2022-ish. And there was like a MSR is part of Project Gotham Racing, and there's like a PGR like Discord server, but like if you would go in there, like it's covered in cobwebs. This is more of like a thing to do with speedrunning as a whole, is that people will really like sort of come and go, and there's like no way to like sort of predict it. With these games, like on average they have maybe like sort of 5 players, and people can do their speed runs at like various different like years or moments. So I would say that there was like the old community of Kane and Ductanian, and then there was like me and Iggy and also this French guy Nexels that we didn't really even talk to that much. And then we were sort of like into it, but yeah, unfortunately with a lot of speedruns, they kind of just enter like periods of dormancy.
One thing I noticed and wanted to ask, why is it that towards the end of your world record run, you were saying you were like concerned about having too much kudos, like you were talking about being, you know, almost having too much. What was that about?
Well, that's just in terms of like a speedrun thing, where it's like you want to cut it as fine as you can, right? If I get to the end of the speedrun and it's like I think I need like 55,050 kudos, and it's like if I finish the speedrun and I've got like 56 or 57,000, then that's like I've wasted time. Throughout the run, I'm always like, oh, we're like 600 over, or we're perfect, we're dead on. And it just means that like, even though in my mind I had a route and I was like, I need to do this much sort of drifting, if in the later stages I'm like way over, then it means that I took the risk of like doing less drifting. I think in one of them it's like if there was like 8 laps, I maybe drifted for like 6, and then I just did like 2 like normal or 2 like fast, and I just like risked like if there's 7 laps and I drift for 7 laps and I get 700 kudos, that means I get like 100 kudos per lap. That means that like I'm up a certain amount, so I can miss out doing a lap's worth, because you know there's no point doing more drifting. You were literally just like losing time. So for me, it was just all about like cutting it as fine as I could.
Okay, yeah, so I have a few tricks that I'm aware of in Metropolis Street Racer myself, such as carrying kudos from a previous race to the next, or using hot laps to gain lots of kudos by drifting in circles, and winning challenges on the PAL version without meeting requirements. Are there any tricks in the run that you use that I might not be aware of? Now, I actually just wanted to add, before I play Tiki Chunk's answer, after this, he messaged me again saying there was one other trick that we didn't talk about. Now, one thing he does throughout his run on the nighttime maps is at the start of the race, he'll toggle rear camera, and it flashbangs you with your own headlights, but then you go back to forward camera, and it becomes slightly brighter, which is like almost a weird leftover lighting effect, and apparently that is very helpful for seeing better. Anyway, here's what he said to the question.
There's multiple versions of PAL, and I just have like the latest version because the older ones have like potentially scary like brick your VMU like potential. And I'm pretty sure only on the scary versions of the game is how you have that like bullshit where it's like, oh, you can like unlock the car even though you don't hit the target or whatever. In our routing, we don't even like go for that car anyway, so like it's irrelevant to us. That drifting across a line and it carrying through, that's a really good one. And I would say like, yeah, potentially like don't just drift in circles up and down over and over. Like we obviously try and do our drifting fast, as in just like racing and going around corners and drifting. The big thing I think I haven't mentioned yet is probably like the Joker system. So you get a Joker every 1K. So during the routing, we had to make sure that like we were using our Jokers at like the right moment. We wanted to make sure that we're using them when we will definitely get at least 1,000 back out of an event. So it's like you put a Joker in, and as long as you get over 1,000 kudos, you get a Joker back out. So you're still like fine Joker-wise. You basically want to hit, with the hot lap fast missions, you want to hit that like target time on like the first lap, so that the rest of the laps you can focus on going slower and then just doing a bunch of drifting.
Now, I want to say this with all due respect, and from my position, but like as a layperson who plays the game quite casually, I felt like your world record run still definitely had opportunities to be optimized. For instance, there were certain mistakes you made. Do you plan to optimize the run further in future, and if so, how?
For me, I really would prefer if like someone else took it up. I think that like, this, you can probably tell like from the Word doc and from like the spreadsheet, like I did a lot of like sciencing with this game, and it's just like, I'm relatively happy with it. I find it pretty stressful to run because there are like even some like scary missions. It sounds really stupid, but like if you watched the run, like when I unlock the OPC, it's like it needs a target time of 32 seconds, and I think I had like 31.9. Like I only barely just like unlocked it. So there's missions that just like stress me out, and for me it's just not worth like continuing to grind. But yeah, like it does suck that like there is a decent amount of like crashing in it, because obviously you want the world record to be very nice and shiny. But yeah, hopefully someone else will not only just like try it for themselves, but hopefully maybe they will be brave enough to change up the routing and potentially go for like different, more rewarding missions.
Right, I'll be honest, I doubt I could touch your record, but yeah, you've kind of been like talking about it. I am definitely interested in running the game for a bit of fun, but myself, and see kind of what time I can clock. So this was meant to be like a general question, but I've declared my interest there. But what would your advice be to anyone who wanted to try and go for the any % record?
My only advice is like just make sure you enjoy the game. because I think you could just like copy the routing and just not crash, and like bada bing bada boom, you'll get the record. But hopefully playing the game fast is more rewarding to you than just the idea of like having like, ooh, I have the world record. The whole reason we like speedrun these games is because we enjoy them, and that should always be at the front. So like, as long as you enjoy the game, that means you'll take an interest in it. If you take an interest in it, then that means you might have a think about routing and your car selection, and it should mean that like when you do hopefully get the record, that you really put your stamp on the game.
All right, so thank you so much to Cheeky Chunk for doing this. It was a real pleasure to speak to you. Pretty awesome. Let's go to the next section. PAL version exploits. So while the US release ironed out these exploits, and the ROM that's available online has patched them out too, the PAL release of MSR has a few useful features that made my playthrough on original hardware a bit easier than it should have been. The most noticeable one is regarding the special challenges on certain events. You'll go into an event, and before the normal landing page, you'll see a time restriction, or a vehicle restriction, or possibly both. While you'll still need to achieve the minimum kudos score stipulated by the event, regardless of which version you play, in the PAL release, the time and car restrictions actually didn't apply. This meant that you could easily play an event thinking you weren't bothering with the special challenge, but if you met the kudos requirement, you'd succeed anyway, usually netting yourself a nice, higher level car. The car restrictions are usually for the Nissan Skyline GTR, which is a car you can only unlock by finishing the 25th chapter and completing it. You have to do all of the events and beat them. As such, the cars locked behind these events are a lot more powerful than you should really have access to if you unlocked them before. It doesn't exactly make the game a cakewalk, but it definitely helps if you're struggling. Now, this was after the second patch, right? The first version of the game that was released actually didn't even check for the kudos score. So if you have this version of the game, those bonus cars are yours, come what may. It's not a bug, it's a feature. Also, I should disclaim that the first version of the game, if it is letting you do this, you should stop using it because it can actually corrupt your Dreamcast memory card, or VMU. So if you are getting the benefits of this exploit, just be careful. You might want to maybe get yourself a second VMU just to kind of quarantine it, just in case. I'll talk more about the patches later. But for now, just know that there were numerous bugs initially, and so a second version of the game was released, and in fact given to those affected by the first version for free as a replacement. That's how much the bugs were affecting people, but we'll go into that in another segment. Now, the kudos exploit. Now, this is one of my favourites. So, Metropolis Street Racer does require you not just to pass events, but to actually accrue enough kudos to then unlock more events and new chapters. So for instance, it's actually possible to beat all of the events available to you, and yet to be stuck in a position where you can't progress, because the next race has a kudos requirement higher than the amount of kudos you have in total. As such, you're stuck. The intended way to solve this problem is actually to go back to previous events and perform better than you did previously. However, this method is for fucking losers. If you want to unlock more events and make those nerds at Bazaar suffer for daring to put a restriction on your progress, go back to an event where the requirement is for your fastest lap to be below a certain time. You can do this literally on the first event of the game, but my favourite one to do is the second. Then once you've loaded in, find yourself a nice open stretch of track, as wide as possible, and then start driving round in circles, drifting as hard and as fast as you can. You ideally want to get up to 3rd gear before you have to drift if you can, and then when you drift, avoid running into the walls as this will add a penalty and defeat the point of what you've just done. Once you've got yourself a good spot, pause the game, open up a YouTube video or put on some music, just give yourself something to focus on while you're doing this, because you're going to do this then once you unpause the game for about 20 minutes. Although I've been told by Iggy and Cheeky Chunk that anything over 10 minutes just isn't worth it, but you know, I do it for about 20. After you've drifted your tyres into the dirt and there's no way your tread depth is road legal, finish the event and then enjoy watching your kudos score fly into quadruple digits. Or you can drive well, like a nerd. I'd like to shout out Mark Bustler over at Classic Game Room for highlighting this technique in his review. It saved me many hours of having to actually get good at the game. DLC. So, like many of the online-enabled Dreamcast games, MSR had downloadable content if your console was connected to the internet. Now this was not DLC as we know it now, this was pre-Horse Armor DLC. Instead of chargeable add-ons, MSR featured numerous time trial ghosts that could be downloaded and challenged. Thanks to the wonderful folks at DreamcastLive.net, all of the MSR DLC has been preserved and is available online. I'll post a link in the description and on screen. I had a go at some of these challenges, but honestly found them to be a bit uncomfortable, purely because I'm used to driving automatic, whereas these challenges are all set to use manual transmission. I suppose they are meant to be for people who have absolutely mastered the game and the skill of driving using manual, but it's a shame there isn't any way for automatic drivers to change the mode. Again, I've got to thank Cheeky Chunk for pointing this out to me. I had absolutely no idea about the DLC until he showed me. I'm sorry, but is it just me or does the guy in the intro video look exactly like Clint Eastwood? Hey, look at this. Now, I don't know who that guy actually is, but in my head that is Clint Eastwood. Okay, now let's talk about the PAL version patches. So, the PAL version of Metropolis Street Racer was released in a buggy state. The game was not unfinished, so it's doing at least better than most studios in 2025, but the bugs were so intrusive that the game was actually recalled, and customers issued with a second PAL version, where the bugs were fixed. Tom Sharnock of Dreamcast Junkyard wrote a great article documenting these, from which I will read his list verbatim. Completing street challenges without the required number of kudos would be considered successful nonetheless. The game would sometimes corrupt VMUs, that's the Dreamcast memory card, and after some time of playing, Tokyo races would always be at night. Furthermore, if you used a keyboard to enter names, the keys were mapped incorrectly. Pressing C would give B, pressing B would give A, and so on. Corrupting your VMU, that is your Dreamcast memory card, is by far the most problematic of the list. Imagine playing this game and then all of a sudden, Chili the Chow and the rest of your Sonic Adventure progress is fucking dead. At least they fixed it. But yeah, if you have this game and your copy is letting you complete challenges without meeting the kudos requirements, maybe get yourself a quarantine VMU, or better yet, a version that isn't potentially going to destroy all your save data. But if you really don't want to chance it, and I don't blame you, luckily you can actually tell just by looking at the disc which version of the game you have. There are in total 3 releases. The first one, which had the issues baked in, is written down as version 1.001. As you can see on the screen there, it's a little bit longer than that. But then the disc, if it's the second version, will say version 1.002, and a fully patched version is listed on the disc as version 1.009. Sega World. One of the medium-length circuits in Shibuya is entitled Sega World Minami, this translating to Sega World South. At first, I assumed this was perhaps some kind of amusement park or made-up in-game location, but Sega World actually used to be a chain of arcades across the globe. The Sega World shown in-game is actually within the Parco shopping centre, visible as you're driving past it in Shibuya. This location was closed sometime in the mid-2000s, but in 2025, Sega reopened a flagship store, the Sega Store, creatively titled, meaning there is at least still some Sega goodness left in Shibuya. The rest of the Sega World locations have either closed or been rebranded, with two exceptions, Sega World Apollo and Sega World O2 Park, both in Japan. 5,000 copies. Despite my own opinion of the game being very positive, the buggy PAL release, along with the rapid decline of the Dreamcast as a console, meant that it only sold roughly 18,000 copies in the PAL region. This number is derived from the game's overall sales. It sold 120,000 copies globally, with roughly 102,000 copies being sold in the US, where the game didn't ship with the PAL bugs. In Europe, the game sold roughly 18,000 copies. Notably, 13,000 or so of these were bought within the first 2 days, leading online sources such as Wikipedia to deduce that after the release, only 5,000 copies were sold. This number seems absurd to me, not just because of the game being great, but also because this game is one of the Dreamcast's most affordable titles, indicating it's not necessarily rare. I picked up my copy for about £10. To put that into perspective, Shenmue, which is over double the asking price in most stores, sold 1.2 million copies globally. That's 10 times the amount of MSR around the world. Crazy Taxi sold approximately 300,000 copies in the UK, and again is double the asking price in most stores, while having sold nearly 30 times the amount of MSR. By all accounts, MSR was a catastrophic failure in terms of sales, at least in the UK. Either way, it's still a fantastic game. Long, Long Road. MSR's soundtrack is impressive, as previously discussed. However, there are two songs which raise my eyebrows, the first of which I'll now discuss. Long, Long Road is a country ballad, which seems silly and fun at first. However, one of the lyrics in the second verse shocked me, not because I found it offensive, but because this game is rated 3+ in the UK, and E for everyone in the States. The story is of the singer and a girl called Mary Lou, and how he sees her and believes she is too good for him, but eventually she accepts his love and they get married. It's sweet, but listen to this. Now the second verse goes, "So I turned to Mary Lou. I really want to marry you. I wondered if she felt the same way too. She hesitated for a while, and after she began to smile, she said, 'Yes, you can walk me down the aisle.'" Cute, right? Here's the next bit. "I looked at her in disbelief, 'cause it was such a great relief to have her say she'd marry me and all. So then we went to celebrate, got back home at 8:30, and then we went to bed to procreate." I just can't help but picture a 5-year-old going, "Mummy, what does procreate mean?" Then, let's talk about Let's Get It On Tonight. Another song from the soundtrack is Let's Get It On Tonight, which features a very funky groove, heavily influenced by the sounds of Will Smith or Coolio, and rapped lyrics in which the vocalist talks to, presumably a woman, as per the title, asking her to get it on. This in itself isn't much. Get it on can easily be interpreted by an innocent mind as having a party, but then the lyrics get a little less subtle. Here you go. "The clock went 10 when we got to my mansion. The only thing that I could think about was expansion. We went to the kitchen and I poured some wine and I thought to myself, haha, girl, you're mine. I told you to undress me, caress me, try to impress me, but just don't possess me. Do what you want to do. Anything you want to. That feels good. Please continue. I'm sorry. You know, I don't know if I'm just dirty, but when I hear all I could think about was expansion, and then, you know, that feels good, please continue. It just, yeah. It's a second verse that discards all pretenses and gets straight to the carnal point. Whoever checked this game for the ratings board clearly didn't play very long, or didn't bother with the radio. Or possibly they avoided Roadhouse and K-Vibe. So if they were just choosing the rock and roll stations, then I guess this is another example of rock and roll corrupting the youth. Pacific Heights. 2 of the maps in MSR are actually based off of areas that inspired other settings in Dreamcast games. Pacific Heights and Fisherman's Wharf feature an iconic stretch of gradient in San Francisco that, once you see it, if you've seen it before, you know where you saw it. Either you played Sonic Adventure 2 and slid down here on a piece of aircraft debris, or you picked up passengers before nearly killing them and yourself in Crazy Taxi. Or you've actually been to this part of the world before. It's an unmistakable location, but if you didn't know, now you do. Bonus kudos exploit. Another nice little exploit for getting extra kudos is if right at the end of the race, you pull a big drift as you cross the finish line. When you enter the next event, you'll be given a little extra kudos carried over from when you start. Cheeky Chunk talks about this when he's speedrunning, but also the place I discovered this was on GameFAQs, so thanks again to Wolf Feather on GameFAQs for documenting this and making my time on the streets of MSR a little bit easier. Ambient noises. Yes, so it's easy to miss the ambient noises Bizarre put into the game while you play it, especially when you focus on a tough event or enjoying the incredible soundtrack. So, if you didn't notice, I've captured and listed the noises I've managed to hear while playing the game. Firstly, in San Francisco, the church bells ringing as you drive through Pacific Heights. In Westminster, a dog barking as you drive past the flats. In St. James's Park, as you drive past the construction site, you'll hear the drills at work. You can hear birds and crows singing in the cities too. In the San Francisco Financial District, and in Westminster, and elsewhere. You can hear the boat horns in the Financial District, and in Fisherman's Wharf, as well as the bells on the dock. Finally, in San Francisco and London, you'll hear the sirens of emergency workers in the distance. Bullet in the Gun. On the radio in London, you'll hear the start of a song, specifically Bullet in the Gun by Planet Perfecto. When I first heard this, I got really excited. I absolutely love this song.
There's a bullet in the gun. There's a fire in your heart.
Planet Perfecto, Bullet in the Gun. Available now.
Unfortunately, it swiftly ends and is revealed to be an advert. This is odd to me. I know the radio has adverts on it, but if Perfecto Records wanted to advertise the song, surely it could have just been slipped into the soundtrack. Either way, it's nice to hear about 10 seconds of it every now and then. How the assets were made. The GameFAQs website has a few interesting bits of trivia that I'll cover in this video. The first one I want to look at is a piece contributed by user Shogun Nova. The visual splendor of MSR's tracks has always gotten fans' attention. According to artist Lee Carter, creating city textures was a relatively simple process as we wanted photorealism. so it was a no-brainer to use a photo reference. Unfortunately, we didn't have digital cameras at the time, so all the photos had to be scanned in. The photos were skewed and straightened out in order to make them ready for applying to 3D models. The best bit was removing random people who had strayed into the shot. The hardest part was removing trees and anything else that obscured the building's facade. Looking at the textures, it's impressive to know that these were done in such a make, do and mend way. They've held up really well and give a wonderful taste of what MSR's free cities were like when this game was made. Diet Tango. On the radio stations in London, you'll occasionally hear a radio advert for Diet Tango. There are actually a few Diet Tango adverts in the game, and they all have their own quirks. There's one that declares it's snack attack time, then another announcing high tea.
At the third stroke, the time sponsored by Diet Tango will be high tea. Meringue, meringue, meringue.
And another announcing chippy time.
At the third stroke, the time sponsored by Diet Tango will be chippy time. Haddock, haddock, haddock.
Finally, there's one that follows a slightly more complex narrative. I'll simply play it for you.
Are you thinking of an exotic holiday? Experiencing a culture and traditions that go back thousands of years? Or are you thinking chicken tikka masala, onion bhajis and poppadoms? Thought so.
Diet Tango. You need it because you're weak.
Diet Tango does not allow you to eat willy-nilly.
Diet Tango was, according to Wikipedia, discontinued in around the early 2010s, but has since come back. Not that I've ever seen or heard of it outside of the game. Anyway, I'll just grab myself a carbonated fruit drink and we'll get back to it. Ah, that's wonderful. TJ Davis. When I first beat MSR, I was so impressed by the experience that I'd actually sat down and watched the credits when they rolled. I couldn't have skipped them anyway, but out of sheer respect, I ensured I took a moment of my time for each of the staff on this masterpiece. Eventually, it got to the section on music, and I was surprised to see that despite her obvious and amazing contributions to the soundtrack, TJ Davis was not among the staff credited. I was pretty shocked by this, so shocked I failed to notice a credit given to Helena Davison on the music front, who, according to VGMDB.net, is just TJ Davis appearing under an alias. I'm unsure why Miss Davis chose to do this. Perhaps it was to avoid any stigma from the fallout of Sonic R, but I have absolutely no reason to believe this is the case, considering Richard Juck did the music for that game under his name too. But yeah, just an odd one. If you've noticed it, well, now you know, Helena Davison is just TJ Davis. Failed launch title. Once again, thanks to Shogun Nova on the MSR GameFAQs website for documenting this. Metropolis Street Racer was originally intended to be a Dreamcast launch title. Sega had successfully lured Bizarre Creations away from Psygnosis and their hit Formula 1 franchise, with Kat Sato reportedly tracking them down at the 1997 ECTS by unplugging their PS1 so he could see the startup credits. However, MSR faced several delays due to artwork, rewritten programming and team size, resulting in it releasing in late 2000, just as the console's fortunes were flagging. It's fascinating to think how different the console's fortunes might have been had MSR been released in time for 9/9/99, September 9th, 1999, the Dreamcast's launch date, especially if the version released had fixed the bugs in the PAL version before release. Either way, it's just a good thing the game came out at all, and for that, I'm grateful. The Sports Cafe. Another in-game advert you'll hear on the London radio stations is for a venue, simply called the Sports Cafe.
Experience the premier sports restaurant and entertainment venue. The Sports Cafe with state-of-the-art audio-visual, 120 TV screens, games, bars and a great restaurant. The Sports Cafe where the games never end. www.thesportscafe.com.
As you just heard, it boasts state-of-the-art audio-visual and a great restaurant. When I first heard this advert, I checked the URL listed, www.thesportscafe.com, and found it was an unused domain now up for sale. However, after googling the Sports Cafe London, I found a listing on a site called London Online, which had a description matching the advert in MSR. Boasting 120 television sets, 9 plasma screens, 4 super screens showing all sorts of sport from around the world, a pool lounge, interactive games, a basketball court, sporting memorabilia, several bars, American food, a DJ and a dance floor, it's impossible not to be entertained in some shape or form. I figured because of an active website, the place still had to be around. There was an address, 80 Haymarket, SW1 4ET. And so I put this into Google Maps and discovered that, technically, there is still a sports cafe at number 80 Haymarket, but it's not the sports cafe. Instead, the location has been turned into a Riley's, which is a chain of sports bars in the UK. So you can visit if you want, but it's not the sports cafe. I can't say whether or not they still have state-of-the-art audio-visual or a great restaurant. Particular view. In MSR's Westminster area, there is a block of flats under construction, with an advert obscuring the work, naming the development Particular View. It's difficult to see in the game, but it even has a tagline. Unrivaled apartments, unparalleled views. There's also a phone number on there. I'm not going to dial phone numbers from a Dreamcast game purely because I don't want to unduly disturb anyone who might be using the number now, but from a Google search and a directory inquiry, it seems the phone number is out of use and perhaps never has been used. It is, though, a valid phone number, held by a company called GCI Communications, who seem to provide business telephony services. Looking at the surrounding area, I think it is fair to say these apartments would have had a particularly great view. Japanese radio stations. There are also Japanese radio stations in MSR, and if you, like me, don't speak Japanese, while the music they play is great, the hosts are, well, literally speaking another language. However, thanks to the power of transcribing audio and then dumping the output into Google Translate, I have managed to translate some of the hosts' lines. Firstly, on JMix, they are advertising some games on the station. Remember the lottery that takes place at JMix this week? If you win, you can get 2 tickets to the theme park you want to go to. There is a quiz waiting after the news, so please answer it and guess. Another bit on JMix is announcing an album and then playing you a track from the album they're discussing. Today, let's send you the numbers from the new Sugar Free album from the UK. This has just been released in the UK, but it will be released in Japan in 2 months, but I'm looking forward to it now, and the new Earthbound album that will be released next Friday. Please listen to one song from here. Listen to Chantel Knoll with It Doesn't Really Matter. Then there's some traffic information. Here is the traffic information. There is currently no closure of the Metropolitan Expressway entrance. The outbound line number 4 is 5 kilometers at Tokaido due to the construction of the Chuo Expressway, and the traffic jam of the intensive construction of the Chuo Expressway inbound line is 7 kilometers in Mitaka. The Kan-Etsu Expressway is 2 kilometers in Oizumi, and the general road is 20 minutes to pass 2 kilometers in Sengoku Wanchom. Also, before playing Holding On, they'll say this.
今週 J-Mix で行われる宝くじ覚えてますか？当たれば行きたいテーマパークのチケットが
Remember the lottery that takes place at J-Mix this week? If you win, you can get 2 tickets to the theme park you want to go to, and a quiz is waiting for you after the news, so please answer it and guess. Next, we will deliver the debut single, Holding On, of the girl band Sugar Free. This song suddenly appeared on the hit charts and caused a big sensation in the UK. Now, let's have a listen to Yamanote Broadcasting and see what they're talking about between all that jazz funk. As the station starts, the host introduces himself and plays Freeway. Hey, this is Naohiko here. Hello to everyone else in the Akihabara Electric Town. We hope you will all enjoy the show. This is a number that entered the chart at number 6 this week. It's Shakara's Freeway. This is 78.5 FM, Yamanote Broadcasting. There's also a weather forecast on Yamanote Broadcasting too, read by host Kikuchi, before Naohiko takes over to play Sellout. Now, here's the weather forecast from Yamanote Broadcasting. In the Tokyo area, the weather is expected to be good today. The day will be sunny, and this weather will continue throughout the week. The maximum temperature is expected to rise to 21 degrees, and Yai takes over and says, "That's all for Kikuchi. Now, here's Sellout by Revelation, which is a little lower than last week, but still alive and well at number 7. Finally, on the dance station, Tokyo 102, they're doing the Club Zone Prefecture show, starting with Passion. Club Zone Prefecture is on the road, so let's play Infinity's track Passion first. Don't forget Friday's midnight show. They're also advertising tickets to see an in-game DJ or group, I can't tell, called Capricorn, before they play Overdrive. You can win a whopping 50 pairs of Capricorn tickets over Tokyo 102 tonight, so don't forget to enter as fast as possible, right now please. Next, Dominator's Overdrive. Then a lady called Ihara reads for traffic information. Here is the traffic information. Currently, Chiba's Keio Road inbound line on Itaka is a virtual car park due to a large truck accident. There's a 4-kilometer traffic jam. On Metropolitan Expressway number 7 Komatsu line near Arakawa Ohashi, there is a traffic jam of 4 kilometers due to construction, as well as a 2-kilometer jam on the number 2 Shiri line from Tengenji to Ichinobashi. That's for traffic from me, Ihara. And there's even a little promotion by the DJ of a new album from the station. I have a little time, so let's promote some music. A new compilation album called Trance Dance has come out from Tokyo 102. It's great. You can get a lot of enjoyment for a long time from just this one album. That was everything I'd managed to capture, so now when you're enjoying the radio in Tokyo, now you at least have some idea of what they're talking about. In-game song titles. The first event I remember playing in MSR was one I played while the in-game radio had tuned itself to the London Underground radio station. When the DJ announced the title of the first track I'd ever heard, Am I Only Dreaming? And the artist, allegedly Undulator with Kim Rogers, I quickly went onto YouTube to save the song to a playlist. However, I could find no such song, no Undulator featuring Kim Rogers, only Am I Only Dreaming, but listed as by Richard Jack or TJ Davis, depending on the upload. As I heard more and more of the music, and the artists supposedly responsible, it became apparent that the radio hosts are citing fictional artists. Now, that level of detail is something I have never seen in a game like this before. Not only an original soundtrack, but radio stations to play the songs and fictional artists for the hosts to give credit to. So, in case you didn't know or didn't notice, I've taken the time to jot down each fictional artist for the songs in the game. I'll now go through the tracks and artists, and I'll list them by the stations they appear on. Starting off with The Underground, we've got Undulator featuring Kim Rogers, as credited for Am I Only Dreaming? New Dawn are credited for Heartland. Atomhead are credited for Push. And then on West Central 1, the Salford Keys are credited for Live Your Life. Helena Davison, which if you've been paying attention is the name by which TJ Davis appeared in the game's credits, either way, Helena Davison is credited for I Can Still Believe, and Otis Cook is credited for Come On Baby. And then on Capital Jazz, Outside In is credited to Defunct, presumably spelt with a K to play on words. Black and White are credited for Think About It, and the Clarence Mitchell Quartet are credited for Low Lights. And then on the Roadhouse, the Jake Richards Band are credited for the supposed live version of When She Comes Back. Faye Douglas is credited for Don't Wait Till Tomorrow Comes. And then Kurt Austin is credited for Long Long Road. And then on 101 Rock, Tomahawk are credited for the song Red Line. Slipstream are credited for Fallen Angel. And Zephyr are credited for California Demon. And then on K-Vibe, we've got Shanice Williams credited for You Can Love Me. MC Momo credited for Let's Get It On Tonight, and Gabrielle Nelson credited for Time. Then on J-Mix, we've got Chantel Knoll credited for It Doesn't Really Matter, Sugar Free credited for Holding On, and Intuition credited for State of Mind. On Yamanote Broadcasting, Revelation are credited for Sellout, Shakara is credited for Freeway, and Capricorn are credited for Show Me Your Love. Finally, the last station, on 102 Tokyo, Infinity are credited for Passion, Dominator are credited for Overdrive, and Osborne are credited for Club Paris. It's kind of hilarious to me how many unique names TJ Davis is given. She's the vocalist for Capricorn, Intuition, Sugar Free. She's also Chantel Knoll, Gabrielle Nelson, Shanice Williams, Faye Douglas, Helena Davison, and Kim Rogers too. It's like every time I hear about Kim Rogers or Gabrielle Nelson on the radio, I always smile to myself and say, I think Kim Rogers is TJ Davis. Green Grove Zone music in-game. So we just covered how It Doesn't Really Matter is really by TJ Davis, despite the radio hosts crediting Chantel Knoll. However, the song's main melody actually originates from the Sega Saturn version of Sonic 3D Blast, specifically the music from Green Grove Zone. Take a listen.
It doesn't really matter what you said, matter what you did to me, 'cause now you are right here in my arms, you set me free.
Now here's the music from Green Grove Zone on the Saturn. I can't blame Richard Jacques, MSR's main composer, for reusing the melody, especially since the Saturn was such a failure that few ever likely heard his work on Sonic 3D Blast there. Unless you'd played both games and had a very keen ear for it, I don't think you'd have ever noticed. Tree Asset Error. In MSR's map of San Francisco, The Pacific Heights area has a lot of trees lining the streets. As you drive past them, you might notice little dots seeming to float past or around you. When I first saw these, I assumed this was meant to be like leaves falling from the trees. After completing the main game and unlocking Pacific Heights in free roam mode, I went to the park at the top of the map, purely because I wanted to have a good long look at it and admire its janky, late 90s polygonal weirdness. The park has a liminal feel, empty of any people or activity, along with that strange feeling of it being a facade. After all, it is just that, but one that's just convincing enough to pass it by until you stop and stare at it. As I was admiring the park, I noticed an odd, single pixel floating above the fence. At first, I assumed this was a stray pixel on the fence sprite, but as I drove around it trying to get a better look, I realised it was too far away, and then I noticed more of them. I took a drive around the streets and looked at the trees and realised that they all had this stray pixel floating somewhere around them. It's such a minor detail that it's not exactly a complaint, more just a reminder of the fact that this game, like its human developers, is not quite perfect. Sorry, once you notice it, it can't be unnoticed. And all of those falling leaves will now reveal themselves in their true form, as one stray pixel that should have been erased. Railway lines. We've talked a lot about cars in this video, but there is another type of vehicle that features prominently in Metropolis Street Racer, that being trains. For those of us with an inclination towards locomotives on rails, MSR has a few tidbits thrown in to have a look at while you're flying past. In Tokyo, there are two areas with some railway action going on. Firstly, in Asakusa, you can see the Tobu Skytree line crossing the river and continuing down as it hovers over the road. Unfortunately, we don't see any trains using the tracks, even if one sits for a while and waits. However, in Shibuya there are 3 lines visible, all as part of the detailed recreation of the real city, and these railways actually have trains riding along them. As you drive south through the most eastern section of the map, there are bridges dipping under a 4-line set of tracks, making up the Yamanote and Saikyo lines respectively. Once you reach the south and approach the bustling Shibuya station, you'll see Tokyo Metro Ginza line crossing well above the ground from east to the west, and there are trains riding along these tracks too. In-game, the trains we see using the tracks all appear to be painted green with some silver accents and silver doors. These trains are likely just meant to be generic pieces of scenery, however I did note that these are not exactly the trains you would have seen using these lines during the time period in which MSR takes place. The trains you see appear to be 103 series trains, electric trains used on the Yamanote and Saikyo lines until 1986. In reality, these trains would have been the 205-0 series trains on the Yamanote and Saikyo lines, and the Tokyo Metro 01 series trains on the Ginza line. Of course, all of these locomotives are out of use now anyway, being as this game is over 25 years old. However, it's interesting that they went as far as making the trains green, but didn't go any further into detail. Over in San Francisco, at Fisherman's Wharf, you'll see trams and their tracks along the streets as you race. For obvious reasons, we never see one of these trams in action, but as previously pointed out, the tram bell can be heard from time to time. Finally, in Westminster, as you drive north from the Particular View building, you'll reach a roundabout just behind Waterloo Station. Again, no trains are visible here, but it's nice to see Waterloo as part of London's iconic scenery. Custom CD glitch. This isn't a huge deal, but there's a glitch in MSR that means your custom CD selections are replaced every time you leave and reboot the game. It's frustrating, especially if you, like me, spent a good 10 minutes or so putting the perfect CD for a long event together with all your favourite tracks. However, if you start your custom CD and find it playing the default selections, there is a very quick and easy fix. All you need to do is go to the settings menu, access the CD player, and play your custom CD. It will then load your custom playlist back into memory. This will stay like so until either you change the playlist or turn off the game. So yeah, if you're going to rock a custom playlist, just make sure you quickly play the CD through the menu before you start playing, and you'll have your tunes just as you want them. Product placements. MSR was developed during an era where advertisements and sponsors were beginning to creep their way into video games. Of course, there had been instances before of bare-faced product placements, like McKids on the Sega Mega Drive, or Pepsi Man for the PlayStation. But it wasn't until games like Crazy Taxi that we would see fast food and fashion outlets as key parts of a video game. Metropolis Street Racer was no exception, and within this game there are numerous examples. So before we continue, I just need to announce today's sponsors. No, this isn't me doing a sponsor segment, no. We're just going to talk about the companies that you'll see fighting for your subconscious desire as you race along in MSR. So the video game was sponsored by Odeon, Empire London, Pizza Hut, McDonald's, Virgin Records, Metropolis Street Racer, Underwater World, yes, Metropolis Street Racer, Tower Records, HMV, Ben & Jerry's, Coca-Cola, Ernst & Young, 7-Up, 76 Gas and Service, Toshiba, Advanced Technology Services, Uden Sourdough, Odakyu Densetsu Kabushiki Gaisha, Carlsberg, Kabushiki Gaisha Paruko, yes, Carlsberg, Canon, Nikon, Capital FM, Kabushiki Gaisha Seibu Horing Dingyusu, Fujifilm, Crest of London, Diesel, Keio Densetsu Kabushiki Gaisha, Samsung, Starbucks, Swatch, Tool, and TGI Fridays. These are the ones I managed to spot through dumping the game's textures and piling through over 4,000 tiny JPEGs to find whatever I could. I may well have missed some, but I hope that gives you an idea of just how many little adverts you'll see in the game. As easy as it is to be cynical about obvious adverts like those above, it is nice to see familiar brands' logos with their optimistic, pre-millennium hues. And, of course, it does help the realism. But yeah, if you still want some more advertising though, you're in luck. In-game parody products. It's important to remember that while MSR had a great deal of real-life products and shops on display, creating 3 cities worth of realistic shops and products does mean that you'll need a few corporations approving their appearances. Unfortunately, Bizarre Creations couldn't get the approval of every single shop, product or restaurant in London, nor San Francisco or Tokyo. I imagine this was due to 2 things: the amount of time it would have taken, and also the amount of bureaucracy likely involved in gaining certain companies' approval. Fortunately for us, it does mean we get to see some very creative replacements for the brands and places Bizarre couldn't get their hands on. Among these are Shells, an accessory store in Trafalgar, London. Some airlines, Swiss Air, Austrain, Alpha Airlines, Alicia Bank, the Atsuyo Corporation, Basho Mart, Bessie's Steakhouse, Big Dogs, Cost Plus, Burgers R Us, a mix of Burger King and Toys R Us presumably, Chic Chic, Deep Pan Pizza, presumably a play on Pizza Hut, Degsy Malone's, Donkin Donuts, a letter off of Dunkin' Donuts, Convert, a parody of Converse, Elvi's, an anagram for Levi's, Gareth's, a little cafe in Trafalgar Square, John, Julie, Jumbo, Just System Best Jam, Martin, likely a reference to MSR's lead producer Martin Chudley, seen here on some cement mix for buildings, Milk, Special, the Royal Bank of Spen, Sammy Tokyo Bank, Body Hop, a play on The Body Shop, The Conical Newspaper, a play on the commonly used Chronicle title for newspapers, The Crazy Manor Letting Company, Tresco, likely a play on Tesco, Wesley's Autos in California, Wildflower Cafe, Winston's, Woods, the World Business Bank, and Zap, electric bicycles, of course selling their wares in California. So there you go. A bunch of fake places in a 25-year-old game that barely 20,000 purchased in Britain when it came out. I hope you took all of that in. In-game media lore. So yeah, in MSR, if you pay attention, you may well notice that there's actually a few made-up bits of media too, as well as the advertised real things. But yeah, I'll just go through some of these and you can see what I'm talking about. In Shibuya, you can spot an advert for presumably a TV show or movie called Romania 503. You can also see adverts for presumably a video game called Dag Dig. I wonder if that's a play on any other popular video games. Posters for a mascot character called Goku are also visible. I think this might be a reference to some kind of animated series, but I don't know. According to the host on JMix, the song Holding On is actually by a girl group called Sugar Free, who are doing very well in the UK. Presumably, all of the girls are TJ Davis. In Trafalgar, you can see a few movie posters around the cinemas. Firstly, Dave Aldaini, MSR's AI programmer, in Another Day, Another Dollar, which appears to be a car movie, perhaps something like Gone in 60 Seconds or The Italian Job. Then there's Walter Linsdale, MSR's technical director, in The Polygon, likely a joke about his involvement in the modelling process for the in-game assets. Finally, at the theatre, they're doing a production of Fur Side Story, a play on West Side Story, which appears to feature characters from Bizarre's previous game, Fur Fighters, a fighting game for the Dreamcast that, as you might imagine, and can see, has taken a bit of inspiration from Rare's animal mascots. You can pick up a few bits of information about the in-game quote-unquote musicians over the radio waves too. On West Central 1, the host will take a moment to advertise a new CD on the radio's own label, WCO Records, by Kim Rogers, the same Kim Rogers who was credited as singing on Am I Only Dreaming over on the Underground station. If you keep listening to West Central 1, you'll hear the host play Come On Baby, and note that the record is actually a quote-unquote classic from 1982. Perhaps in the world of MSR, it is a classic indeed. And then on Tokyo 102, they are giving away concert tickets to see Capricorn. The same Capricorn who are credited on Yamanote Broadcasting as producing Show Me Your Love. Maybe in collaboration with Kim Rogers, as TJ Davis sings on it. Then again, it could be Gabrielle Nelson, Janice Williams, any one of her multiple personas. Lose 0 kudos when discarding cars. I found this on GameFAQs, and I would like to thank FunkyQB for posting this info. I'll read their guidance verbatim. Step 1. Go to the Your Garage option. Step 2. Pick the car that you want to get rid of and then choose the Discard Car option. Do not choose Yes. Step 3. Remember or write down the number of kudos that it says you will lose for discarding the car, and then choose No. Step 4. Go back to the main menu and choose the street racing option. Step 5. Pick any chapter and any type of race. Step 6. Choose the change car option and pick the car that you want to get rid of. Step 7. Start the race, and when you're in the race, press start on your controller and choose quit race. Step 8. After quitting the race, you'll be shown that you've lost 50 kudos for abandoning the race. Step 9. Head back to the main menu and choose the Your Garage option. Step 10. Pick the car that you want to get rid of and choose the discard car option. Again, do not choose Yes. Step 11. You'll notice that the kudos for discarding the car has changed by a certain amount. Step 12. Choose No and keep repeating steps 4 to 8. Once you've reduced the amount of kudos that you will lose for discarding the car to the amount that you wish, discard the car. Step 13. After discarding the car, there'll be an empty slot in the garage, ready for a new car. There you go. Once again, thanks to FunkyQB on GameFAQs for this exploit. Half-Life poster. When I purchased my physical copy of MSR, I was happy to see that it still included the manual and some promotional materials. What shocked me though, was that when I had a look at the promotional cards, there was a promotion for Half-Life, coming soon to the Sega Dreamcast. Now, Half-Life, if you don't know, is a very popular PC first-person shooter by Valve. It's easily one of my favourite games, and I spent years, firstly on my PS2 and eventually on the first PC I could get to run it, running around Black Mesa and dying a lot. I was aware they had planned to port it to the Dreamcast, but canned it due to the console's death. But I had no idea they were so close to releasing it that promotional materials were being printed and put in other games. This is just a pretty cool thing, nothing really relating to the game, but if you get a copy of the game, maybe you'll see it too. Weird Girl's Face. As part of making this video, I dumped the textures from MSR. In order to show you some of the content I've displayed, I had to go through about 4,000 files. And one that stuck out to me for no particular reason was this. I think it's just from a display in Tokyo, one of the digital screens, but there's something off about it. Just this static face staring blankly at you. Gives me the creeps. I think the thing that weirds me out is that in this game, there's no context for it. Unlike a lot of other things, there's no further explanation, no deeper lore, it's just what it is. The lack of explanation for something like that in itself is enough to creep me out a little. Missing person. Another texture that came up in the dump was this missing person poster. I presume this is someone from the Bizarre Creations team, but again, something like this is enough to raise questions. Who is this person? Is it a member of the staff, or is it a texture, from one of those photos that Lee Carter used? If so, is it a real poster? If so, where is this person now? Are they safe? Were they found? Does anyone care? Is there any legacy to have been snapped and pasted into this game? Who knows? Again, in the context of this game, it's just odd. Dad. Finally, I've saved my favourite bit of MSR info for the very end. We looked at in-game movie posters earlier, but I neglected to mention one of them. It's a poster for Dad, starring Lee Carter, you know, the lead graphics artist. Coming soon! Maybe, like the others, this is just a developer inserting themselves into the games world with no more intent than to do just that. However, I can't help but feel this was a reference to Lee's life. Perhaps that soon he was to be a father. I scoured online for any information I could find, short of looking at social media, which I chose not to do out of respect for his privacy. I couldn't find any reference to Mr. Carter being a father, but even if he was, I'm sure that's something you'd keep somewhat private. Bar putting a literal movie advertisement for it in a big Sega racing title that you've been working on. Either way, it made me chuckle. And if you're receiving this, Lee, congratulations. Dad or not, you did a damn good job on this game. Well, that is all I had to say. Thank you for watching to the end. Consider leaving a like and subscribing if you enjoyed the video. Otherwise, take care.